Listen to me. Before anything else happens today, before you walk out of this room and go back to your normal routine, I need you to hear this with your whole soul. Nobody can sell you a dream you don't want. Nobody can dangle success, money, comfort, or approval in front of your face if you already know what you're after. The problem isn't opportunity. The problem is confusion. Too many people are saying yes to anything because they don't know what they actually want. So, I'm not asking you for your applause. I'm not asking you for your approval. I'm not asking you for anything except this clarity. When you leave here, you better know what you want. What do you want for your family? What do you want for your health? What do you want financially? Not someday, not one day, but in real numbers. How do you want to live your life? Because drifting through life like an accident is the fastest way to wake up with regret. I don't speak from theory. I don't speak from books. I speak from scars. I've been at the bottom. I've lived where excuses were easy and hope was rare. And let me tell you something, the circumstances didn't change first. I changed. The moment I stopped waiting on life to feel sorry for me, everything shifted. The moment I stopped being a victim and decided to fight every single day, that's when progress started. Winners don't win because life is fair. Winners win because they decide to. And once winning starts, it spreads. It becomes a mindset. It becomes a standard. It becomes who you are. But it starts with one hard truth: you owe you. You owe yourself effort. You owe yourself discipline. You owe yourself honesty. And until you're brave enough to look in the mirror and admit when you let yourself down, nothing changes. This isn't about blaming your past. This isn't about pointing fingers. This is about ownership. Because at the end of the day, nobody can stop you but you. And the moment you decide to hold yourself to the fire, the moment you decide to give life everything you've got, that's the moment your life starts to rise. Listen to me. The greatest mistake you can make in life is waking up every single day without direction. You get up, you move, you hustle, you grind, but you don't know why. And when you don't know what you want, life will hand you anything and you'll take it. You'll take the wrong job, the wrong relationship, the wrong habits, the wrong standards, because confusion makes you desperate. And desperate people don't choose. They settle. You've got to get to a point where nobody can sell you a version of life you don't want. Nobody can distract you with shiny things, quick money, or empty applause. Why? Because you already decided. You already wrote it down. You already saw it in your mind. When you don't know what you want, everything looks like an opportunity. When you do know what you want, distractions become obvious. I'm asking you to stop living vague. Stop saying, I just want to be happy. What does that mean? Stop saying, I want to be successful. Define it. How much money? What kind of lifestyle? What kind of marriage? What kind of relationship with your kids? What kind of body? What kind of energy when you walk in a room? Clarity is power. And without clarity, you will waste years working hard in the wrong direction. Some of you are tired, not because you're doing too much, but because you're doing too much of what doesn't matter. You're exhausted because you're chasing things that were never yours to begin with. You're running somebody else's race, trying to win somebody else's definition of success, and wondering why you feel empty. That's what happens when you don't decide what you want. When you know what you want, your mornings change. You don't need motivation. You don't need somebody to hype you up. You wake up with purpose. You wake up with urgency. You wake up knowing that every decision either moves you closer or pulls you further away. And you start saying no, not because you're rude, but because you're focused. Clarity forces discipline. When you know what you want, excuses don't sound good anymore. You can't lie to yourself the same way. You can't keep saying one day when you know exactly what that day requires. You stop drifting. You stop hoping. You stop waiting for permission. And you start moving with intention. Life doesn't respond to wishes. Life responds to decisions. And the moment you decide, this is what I want, this is who I'm becoming, this is the standard I'm telling you, everything else has to adjust. Your habits adjust. Your circle adjusts. Your energy adjusts. Because once your vision is clear, your actions have no choice but to follow. Let me be real with you. Nothing changes in your life until you stop playing the victim. I don't care how unfair it was. I don't care who walked out on you. I don't care what you didn't get, what you should have gotten, or what somebody else got that you didn't. As long as you keep pointing fingers, you are giving away your power. The moment you say, "It's because of them," you just told the world you're not in control. Being a victim feels safe. It gives you an excuse. It gives you a story. It gives you someone to blame when life doesn't turn out the way you hoped. But it also keeps you stuck, because victims wait. Victims hope. Victims expect life to change before they do. And life doesn't work like that. Life responds to ownership, not complaints. You don't need new parents. You don't need a new boss. You don't need a new city or a new government or a new economy. You need a new mindset. You need to decide that no matter what happened to you, it stops with you. That the pain doesn't get to write the rest of your story. That your past doesn't get to dictate your future. See, responsibility is heavy. That's why most people don't want it. Because when you take responsibility, you can't hide anymore. You can't blame traffic for being late. You can't blame your boss for not being prepared. You can't blame your childhood for why you quit. You have to look in the mirror and say, "I didn't do what I was supposed to do." And that takes courage. But the moment you take responsibility, something powerful happens. You get your control back. You realize that even if you didn't choose what happened to you, you get to choose what you do next. You realize that your results are connected to your effort, your habits, and your standards. And once you see that connection, excuses start to sound weak. Winners aren't people who had it easy. Winners are people who stopped negotiating with their excuses. They stopped waiting for perfect conditions. They stopped saying, "I'll try." They made a decision to fight, to grind, to learn, to press forward every single day, whether they felt like it or not. You can't be a victim and a victor at the same time. One mindset cancels the other out. As long as you're telling yourself the story of why you can't, you'll never discover the reason why you can. Responsibility is the line in the sand. On one side is fear, blame, and regret. On the other side is growth, power, and progress. And nobody can cross that line for you. Only you can decide to step over it. Listen closely. Winning is not an accident. It's not luck. It's not talent. It's not where you're from or who you know. Winning is a culture. And once that culture is built, it feeds on itself. You don't stumble into winning. You create it, brick by brick, habit by habit, decision by decision. Most people think winning is one big moment, one big break, one big check, one big opportunity. But that's not how it works. Winning starts small. It starts with doing what you said you were going to do when nobody is watching. It starts with getting up when you don't feel like it. It starts with finishing what you start. Those small wins don't look impressive, but they change something inside you. They build confidence. They build belief. And belief changes behavior. When you start winning, even in small ways, your mindset shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who hopes. You start seeing yourself as someone who expects results. And expectations raise your standards. You don't tolerate excuses the same way. You don't accept average the same way. You don't hang around negativity the same way. Because winning doesn't like messy environments. Losing works the same way. If you let excuses slide today, they'll show up louder tomorrow. If you let people disrespect you today, it becomes normal tomorrow. If you keep quitting, quitting becomes your identity. That's how losing becomes a culture. And once a culture is set, it's hard to break, unless you make a conscious decision to change it. Here's the truth. Winners are attracted to winners. Not because of titles or money, but because of energy, discipline, and standards. When you start winning, you don't even have to look for other winners. They find you. Opportunities show up. Conversations change. Rooms open up. Not because you asked, but because your consistency made you visible. And let me say this, winning spreads. It doesn't stay in one area of your life. When you win in discipline, it shows up in your health. When you win in focus, it shows up in your finances. When you win in accountability, it shows up in your relationships. That's why once winning starts, it accelerates. One win gives you the courage to go after the next dot. Stop waiting to feel confident before you act. Confidence comes after you keep your word to yourself. Stop waiting for the perfect system, the perfect plan, the perfect conditions. Winners don't wait for structure. They create momentum. And momentum is louder than any excuse you've been. Holding on to dot every day you wake up, you are voting for the culture you want in your life. One vote doesn't look like much, but keep casting it. Win today, then win again tomorrow. And after a while, winning won't be something you do, it'll be who you are. Let me push you right here. The real problem isn't that you don't want more, it's that your standards are too low. You keep asking life for greatness, but you keep offering average. You want success, but you're comfortable with excuses. You want respect, but you don't hold yourself accountable. And life is only going to respond to the standard you're willing to live by. High standards are uncomfortable. That's why most people avoid them, because high standards demand consistency. They demand discipline. They demand that you show up the same way on bad days as you do on good days. And you can't fake that. You can't negotiate with that. Either you live by your standards, or you don't have any. You're real quick to point out when somebody else drops the ball. Real quick to say they didn't deliver, they didn't show up, they didn't do what they promised. But when it comes to you, you want understanding, you want exceptions. And that double standard is costing you your future. C. When you truly respect yourself, you don't need someone watching over you. You don't need supervision. You don't need reminders. You do what you said you were going to do because your word means something to you. And when your word starts meaning something to you, it starts meaning something to the world. Stop measuring your effort by how you feel. Feelings change, energy changes, motivation fades. Standards don't. Standards are the reason you still give your best when you're tired. Standards are the reason you still prepare when nobody claps. Standards are the reason you still show up on time, still do the work, still bring excellence, even when the reward doesn't match the effort yet. You say you want to be great, but greatness costs something. It costs comfort, it costs convenience. It costs late nights, early mornings, and doing the hard thing when the easy option is right there. And if you're not willing to pay that price, you don't want greatness. You just like the idea of it. Let me be clear. You don't owe the world perfection, but you owe yourself effort. You owe yourself integrity. You owe yourself excellence. And if you can't give 120%, then don't show up at all. Because half effort is disrespectful to your potential and to your future. Raise the standard, and your habits will have to catch up. Raise the standard, and your circle will either level up or fall away. Raise the standard, and excuses won't survive in your life anymore. Because when you demand more from yourself than anyone else ever could, average has no place to hide. Hear me clearly. Nobody owes you anything, but you owe you everything. You owe yourself your best effort. You owe yourself consistency. You owe yourself honesty. And until you understand that, you're going to keep expecting from the world what you refuse to demand from yourself. You want guarantees from life. You want promises. You want certainty. You want someone to tell you, if you do this, it's going to work out. But when was the last time you guaranteed yourself anything? When was the last time you looked in the mirror and said, no matter how I feel, I'm showing up? You're quick to ask for refunds from people, quick to complain when expectations aren't met, but you've never demanded a refund from yourself for the days you wasted, the effort you withheld, the excuses you made. Consistency is the debt you owe your future. Every day you don't show up, the interest grows. Every day you give half effort, the gap between who you are and who you could be gets wider. And deep down, you know it. That's why you're frustrated. That's why you're tired. Not because life is hard, but because you're not being honest with yourself. Owing yourself means discipline when nobody is watching. It means saying no to comfort when comfort is costing you progress. It means holding yourself accountable before you hold anyone else accountable. You can't keep breaking promises to yourself and expect confidence to show up. Confidence is built when you keep your word to you. You talk about motivation, but motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. Commitment is different. Commitment says, I'm doing this whether I feel like it or not. Commitment says, I don't need applause to give effort. Commitment says, I'm not negotiating with my potential anymore. And let me tell you something, when you finally start honoring the debt you owe yourself, everything shifts. Your walk changes, your talk changes, your standards change. You stop begging for validation because you know you're doing the work. You stop explaining yourself because your results start speaking. Owing yourself also means sacrifice. It means cutting off habits that feel good but cost too much. It means putting yourself on discipline when you've been too comfortable. It means telling yourself no now so you don't have to live with regret later. Growth doesn't respond to excuses, it responds to action. You don't need more time. You don't need more resources. You don't need more support. You need to stop letting yourself down. The moment you decide to show up every day with effort, integrity, and hunger, you become dangerous to mediocrity, to fear, to every excuse that's been holding you back.